Calvin Gibson sat motionless in his home office, his fingers hovering over the keyboard as he watched the security feed on his laptop. The evening sun cast long shadows through the bay windows of their colonial-style house, but the HD cameras captured every detail with crystal clarity. On the screen, his wife Donna moved through their living room with practiced precision, arranging the scene like a theater. "You monster," she whispered to herself, adjusting her hair in the mirror. "How could you do this to me?" Her reflection showed no trace of the loving mother who had kissed their children goodbye that morning. Instead, her face held the concentrated focus of an actor preparing for a performance. Calvin's jaw tightened as he watched her retrieve a small makeup kit from behind the entertainment center. The multiple camera angles he'd installed captured every deliberate brushstroke as she created artificial bruises along her forearm. The irony wasn't lost on him. He designed this cutting-edge security system to protect his family, never imagining he'd be documenting his wife's elaborate deception. "Perfect," Donna murmured, examining her handiwork. "The judge will have to believe this." A notification popped up on Calvin's phone, a text from their eldest son, Michael, Astor's dad. "I think you need to see something else. Check camera 3 from last night." Calvin switched feeds, his stomach churning as he watched Donna in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. The timestamp read 2:17 a.m. "Raphael, baby. It's all coming together." She purred into the phone. Calvin doesn't suspect a thing. He's so wrapped up in his precious security systems. He doesn't even notice when I'm gone. "Yes, I'll meet you at the hotel tomorrow." The usual place. The video continued, showing Donna's late-night conversation in stark detail. "Once we get the domestic claims filed, it'll be easy. Your wife won't know what hit her either. We'll both be free, and with the settlements," she laughed, the sound harsh in the empty kitchen. "Let's just say we won't have to worry about money ever again." Calvin closed his eyes for a moment, centering himself. When he opened them, his expression was steel. He'd built his company from nothing, developing home automation systems that protected families. He wouldn't let Donna destroy everything he'd worked for, especially not their children's sense of security. The next morning, Calvin maintained his routine with mechanical precision. He prepared breakfast for the kids while Donna slept in, claiming one of her frequent migraines. "Dad," Michael said quietly as he helped pack lunches, "I found something else." The 15-year-old pulled out his own phone, showing a series of screenshots. "Mom's been talking to Sarah and Jason separately, trying to get them to say things about you." Calvin's hand stilled on the sandwich he was making. "Show me." Together, they reviewed the footage from the previous week. Donna and Jason's room perched on his bed with a new gaming console in hand. Their youngest son's face showed confusion and distress. "Remember what we talked about, sweetie?" Donna's voice was honey-sweet. "When the nice lady at the courthouse asks you questions, you just need to tell her how Daddy makes you feel scared sometimes. It's important that they understand." "But Dad never scares me," Jason protested, his 10-year-old face scrunching up. "He teaches me coding and helps me with my science projects." "That's because he's manipulating you, honey. Here, if you help Mommy with this, the new PlayStation is all yours." Calvin's grip on the counter turned his knuckles white. "Have you shown this to Sarah?" Michael nodded. "She doesn't believe Mom either. She caught her practicing her testimony in the bathroom last week. Mom didn't know Sarah was filming." "Keep documenting everything," Calvin instructed. His voice was steady despite the rage building inside him. "But don't confront her. Not yet." The next few days passed in a blur of discovery. Calvin threw himself into work during the day, expanding his security company's reach while quietly gathering evidence. At night, he reviewed footage, building a comprehensive timeline of Donna's betrayal. It was during one of these late-night sessions that he discovered something unexpected: a series of emails and Donna's cloud backup. He'd written the security program himself. After all, revealed a connection he hadn't anticipated. The messages were between Donna and Raphael Wolf's wife, Abigail. But these weren't friendly exchanges. They were carefully crafted lies, complete with doctored photos showing Raphael in compromising positions. "Your husband's temper is worse than you know," Donna had written. "I've seen the bruises he leaves on his assistant. If you don't believe me, check the attached video." Calvin reviewed the attached file. It showed Raphael apparently raging at an employee, but Calvin's trained eye caught the telltale signs of manipulation. The same techniques Donna used in her own staged videos. He traced the IP address of the email attachments. They led back to a private server registered to Donna's office. She wasn't just destroying her own family. She was orchestrating the demolition of Raphael's as well. A quick background check on Abigail Wolf revealed a successful art therapist who worked with traumatized children. Her social media showed a woman dedicated to healing, not the shrewish wife Donna had described in her messages to Raphael. Calvin made a decision. He reached for his phone. "Mrs. Wolf, this is Calvin Gibson. I believe we need to talk about our spouses." They met at a quiet cafe across town the next morning. Abigail Wolf had the same steadiness in her eyes that Calvin recognized in himself. Someone used to holding things together for others. "I should have known something was wrong," Abigail said, reviewing the evidence on Calvin's laptop. "Raphael's been different lately, but I never imagined." Her hand shook slightly as she watched one of Donna's staged videos. "They're planning to take everything, aren't they?" Calvin nodded. "Donna's been coaching our children to testify against me. I assume Raphael's doing the same with yours." Abigail's voice cracked. "Emma and Lucas have been asking strange questions lately about whether I've ever hurt them. How could he use them like this?" "Because people like Donna and Raphael don't see children as people," Calvin replied, his tone measured but cold. "They see tools, assets, things to be manipulated for their benefit." They spent the next hour comparing notes, building a timeline of the affair and the elaborate scheme their spouses had constructed. Both Donna and Raphael had created fake evidence of domestic crime, manipulated their children, and planned to use the family courts to extract maximum settlements. "What's your plan?" Abigail asked finally, her professional calm returning. Calvin's smile was sharp. "I believe in systems, Mrs. Wolf. Security systems, justice systems, family systems. When someone tries to corrupt those systems, there need to be consequences." "Call me Abigail," she said. "And I agree. Our children deserve better than this." As they parted ways, Calvin received another text from Michael. "Mom's planning something big. She's in the living room with Sarah right now. Camera 1. Calvin pulled up the feed on his phone. Donna sat on the couch beside their 13-year-old daughter, arm around her shoulders in a parody of maternal comfort. "Your father's business trips," Donna was saying, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Those aren't all for work, sweetie. I hate to tell you this, but I've seen the evidence. He has another family." Sarah pulled away, her face showing the same stubborn skepticism she'd inherited from Calvin. "That's not true. Dad always video calls us when he's away. We see where he is." "Green screens, honey. He taught you about those himself. Remember, in his line of work, it's easy to fake things." Donna pulled out her phone, showing Sarah something. "Look at these photos." Calvin zoomed in on the screen, more doctored images supposedly showing him with another woman and children. His blood boiled at the realization that Donna was using his own teachings about technology against him. "I don't believe you," Sarah said firmly, standing up. "Dad wouldn't do that." "Oh, sweetie." Donna's smile didn't reach her eyes. "You're so naive, just like I was at your age. But don't worry. Once the divorce is settled, we'll be better off. No more lies." Sarah ran from the room, leaving Donna alone on the couch. The camera caught her expression shifting from concerned mother to calculating predator in an instant. She pulled out her phone again, dialing quickly. "Raphael, she didn't buy it. We need to move faster. Yes, I know your kids are being difficult too. But once we get the domestic crime claims filed, of course, I can get more evidence. Calvin's such a workaholic. He never notices when I borrow his credit card. I'll book the hotel for next week." The usual place. Calvin switched off the feed, his decision crystallizing. He built his career on protecting homes and families from external threats. Now he would use those same skills to expose the rot within. He opened his laptop and began typing to family court services, subject evidence of fraudulent domestic crime claims. The cursor blinked, waiting. Calvin glanced at the photos of his children on his desk. Michael's serious face, so like his own, Sarah's determined expression, Jason's innocent smile. Donna had underestimated them all, thinking she could manipulate children raised to understand both technology and truth. "Game on," Calvin muttered and began to write. Later that evening, as he reviewed the day's footage, he caught a conversation between Michael and Sarah in the backyard. They sat on the old swing set, heads close together. "Mom's lying," Sarah said firmly. "About everything." Michael nodded. "Dad knows. He's got it all on camera. Every rehearsal, every fake bruise, every coaching session with Jason. Should we tell him about the money? I saw her transferring stuff from the college accounts last week." "Already did. Dad's got it handled. Trust him." Sarah kicked at the ground. "I always thought Mom was just dramatic. But this is different." "Yeah," Michael agreed. "This is crazy. But Dad's stronger than she thinks. Way stronger." Calvin felt a surge of pride in his children's resilience. Donna had failed to recognize that the same analytical mind she was trying to destroy in him lived on in their children. They'd seen through her performance not because of his evidence, but because she underestimated their intelligence. His phone buzzed. Another text from Abigail. "Raphael just told our kids he's working late again. GPS tracker shows he's headed to Dana's office. Should we?" "Not yet," Calvin replied. "Let them dig deeper. Every lie they tell is another nail in their own coffin." He switched back to the security feed. Dana was in their bedroom now, carefully selecting outfits and placing them in a hidden suitcase in the back of her closet. The camera caught her admiring herself in the mirror, practicing her victim expression. "Oh, Calvin," she whispered to her reflection. "You really should have paid more attention to your wife instead of your precious security systems." She smiled, a cold expression that had become her true face. "But don't worry. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are." Calvin leaned back in his chair, a grim smile playing at his lips. Dana had no idea that her greatest weakness was her own vanity, the absolute certainty that she was the smartest person in any room. She'd stage her performances for an audience of one, never noticing the other cameras, never considering that her children might be more than passive props in her drama. The security system chimed softly, alerting him to movement at the front door. Sarah was heading out for her evening run, her face set in the determined expression she wore when working through problems. Through another camera, he saw Michael helping Jason with homework in the kitchen, subtly positioning them both in view of the security feed. His children had become part of the system without him having to ask, documenting and preserving the truth even as their mother tried to distort it. They were protecting their family in their own way, showing a strength Donna had never bothered to notice. Calvin opened a new file on his computer, labeled simply Evidence. In it, he began organizing weeks of footage, financial records, and documented conversations. A case built on truth, not theater. Donna wanted to play a role. He would make sure she got exactly the audience she deserved. The sun set over their suburban home. Cameras were in quietly in every corner. In the growing darkness, Calvin Gibson prepared for war, not with dramatic gestures or emotional outbursts, but with the quiet, inexorable force of truth backed by technology. Donna had chosen her stage. Now he would make sure the final act played out exactly as it should. After all, security wasn't just about keeping threats out. Sometimes, it was about revealing the dangers that lived right beside you. Wearing a familiar face and a practiced smile, Calvin watched from his home office as Donna's car pulled out of the driveway, her designer luggage packed for another emergency business conference with Raphael. The morning sun glinted off her wedding ring, a ring she still wore like a prop in her ongoing performance. Dad, Michael stood in the doorway, his 15-year-old frame filling the space with an almost adult presence. She's gone. Are we going to tell them now? Calvin nodded, his expression grim. Get your siblings. They need to see this. In the living room, Sarah and Jason settled onto the couch, while Calvin connected his laptop to the main TV screen. Michael sat between his younger siblings, protective without being obvious about it. What I'm about to show you isn't easy to watch, Calvin began, his voice steady. But you deserve to know the truth about what's been happening in our home. The first video played, Donna in the living room, carefully applying makeup to create fake bruises while coaching herself through lines about domestic crime. Jason's eyes widened as he watched his mother transform into someone unrecognizable. That's why she wouldn't let me use her special makeup kit, Sarah whispered, her 13-year-old face hardening with understanding. More footage followed, Donna bragging Jason with the gaming console, coaching Sarah about Daddy's anger issues, trying to manipulate Michael with promises of a car if he'd tell the truth about his father's behavior. She tried this on all of us, Michael realized aloud, but separately, so we couldn't compare notes. Calvin nodded. Your mother and her friend Raphael have been planning this for months. They're trying to destroy two families for their own benefit. Raphael, Jason's voice trembled. Mom's boss, the one who gave me the baseball tickets. Yes, buddy, those tickets were part of their plan too. Sarah stood abruptly, her hands clenched. I need to check something. She ran upstairs, returning moments later with Donna's old phone, the one she claimed stopped working last month. I saw her hide this in her craft supplies. She doesn't know I found it. The phone screen lit up. Sarah had already figured out the password, their wedding anniversary, which Donna had never bothered to change. Messages filled the screen. Dozens of conversations between Donna and Raphael. The kids are such a hassle. Once we get the settlements, we can ship them off to boarding school. Clean break. Our two are just as bad. Abigail's turned them against me with all her family therapy nonsense. But soon they won't be our problem. Jason's the easiest to manipulate. Sarah's getting suspicious, but a few well-placed tears about Daddy's secret family should do the trick. Michael's too much like his father. Thinks he's so smart with his computers. Jason's voice broke. She wants to send us away. Calvin moved to sit beside his youngest son, but Jason wasn't finished. He pulled out his iPad, hands shaking slightly. I heard her last night. In the kitchen. I always record my game walkthroughs. He pulled up a video file. I accidentally left it recording when I went to get water. The iPad speaker captured Donna's voice clearly. Don't worry, Raph. Boarding school will fix the kid problem. The courts love a mother prioritizing her children's education. Calvin won't be able to fight it once I show them how unstable he is. Michael's face had gone hard. Mom doesn't know about the new security updates. Does she? No, Calvin confirmed. She doesn't. A knock at the door interrupted them. Calvin checked the security feed on his phone before opening it. Abigail Wolfe stood there with her children, Emma and Lucas. I hope we're not too early, she said softly. The kids needed to talk. The next hour transformed the living room into a kind of informal therapy session. Emma and Lucas shared their own stories of Raphael's manipulation, the guilt trips, the expensive gifts with strings attached, the carefully staged photos that made their mother look unstable. Dad said Mom was crazy, Emma explained, her voice bitter. He kept showing us proof of her losing it at his office, but the timestamps were wrong. Mom was with us at my recital when she was supposedly throwing things at him. Lucas pulled out his phone. He tried to convince me Mom was hurting me in my sleep, at these weird bruise photos. But look, he showed Jason a photo of himself at a basketball game. The bruise in Dad's photo is on my left arm. In this real photo from the same day, nothing. Amateur mistake, Michael commented. He should have mirrored the image. Michael, Calvin mourned, but with a hint of pride at his son's technical observation. Sarah had been quiet, studying Dana's burner phone. "They're getting sloppy," she announced. "Mom left her fake makeup kit out yesterday. I took pictures of everything. The spirit gum she uses to make fake cuts, the special effects palette she bought online, even found the receipt." "Receipt is good," Calvin noted, "dates and evidence. I've been backing up all the security footage too," Michael added. "Multiple copies, different locations. Just like you taught me, Dad." Calvin glanced at Abigail, who nodded slightly. Their children were processing their anger through action, turning their pain into purpose. It was healthier than denial. Jason, the youngest of both families, had been listening intently. "What do we do now?" he asked, looking between the adults. "They're still going to lie about you. Both of you." "Now," Calvin said, "we let them think they're winning. For a little while longer." The next few weeks passed in a careful dance of deception. Dana grew increasingly confident. Her performance was more elaborate as she believed her plan was working. She didn't notice Michael's careful documentation of every staged incident, or Sarah photographing her fake bruise kit, or Jason's iPad recording her late-night planning sessions. Calvin focused on his children's healing while expanding his security business. His latest patents included features specifically designed to detect and document patterns of domestic manipulation. During the day, he built systems to protect other families. At night, he helped his children process their evolving understanding of betrayal. Abigail's expertise as an art therapist proved invaluable. She helped both sets of children channel their feelings into creative projects. Sarah began working on a documentary about digital evidence, while Emma painted powerful abstract pieces about truth and lies. Lucas and Jason collaborated on a graphic novel about a superhero who could detect deception. "They're handling this better than I expected," Abigail commented one evening, watching the children work on their projects in the Gibsons' basement studio. "But they're angry." "Rightfully so." Calvin nodded. "They need a way to confront them. On their own terms." "Dad," Michael stood in the studio doorway. "We've been talking. All of us. We want to tell them ourselves. Not in court, not through lawyers. Face to face." The other children gathered behind him, their faces showing a maturity forced upon them too soon. "We choose where and when," Sarah added. "No more letting them control the story." "The porch," Jason said suddenly. "Outside. Because they don't get to come into our home anymore. Either of them." Calvin studied their faces, his children and Abigail's, united by their parents' betrayal, but stronger for having faced it together. He saw no doubt in their expressions, only determination. "Michael, what's your plan?" His eldest son outlined their idea. It was detailed, technical, and emotionally raw in a way only teenagers could devise. But it was also strategic. They wanted to confront Donna and Raphael, with the weight of evidence behind them to show their parents that underestimating their children had been their biggest mistake. "We'll need to prepare you," Abigail said gently. "Confrontation like this won't be easy." "Nothing about this has been easy," Emma pointed out. "But we're doing it anyway." Over the next week, Calvin and Abigail helped the children prepare. They practiced what to say, how to handle potential reactions, when to step back if emotions ran too high. The children worked on their presentation of evidence. Michael organized the technical proof. Sarah arranged her photos and documentation. Jason and Lucas prepared their recordings. "Remember," Calvin told them during one practice session, "you don't owe them any reaction. Your feelings are yours. They don't get to manipulate them anymore." The children took turns playing both parts, accuser and accused. They worked through anger, tears, and even unexpected laughter as they prepared for every possible scenario. "What if they try to say we're lying?" Jason asked during one session. "What if they say we're just kids who don't understand?" "Then we show them exactly how much we understand," Michael replied, holding up a USB drive containing months of security footage. "Mom and Raphael think they're the only ones who know how to gather evidence." Sarah nodded, clutching her notebook full of dated entries about Dana's coaching sessions. They thought we were props in their performance. We're not. We're the audience they never expected and critics. Lucas added with a grim smile, giving them the worst reviews ever. As the day of confrontation approached, Calvin watched his children transform their pain into purpose. They moved through the house like silent documentarians, capturing every detail of Dana's deception. Their mother remained oblivious, caught up in her own performance to notice her audience had changed. The night before their planned confrontation, Calvin found Jason sitting alone on the porch steps, having second thoughts. "Buddy," Jason shook his head. "No, just thinking about something Mom said when she was bribing me with that game console. She said sometimes we have to pretend things are okay, even when they're not." "But that's not true," Calvin agreed, sitting beside his youngest. "It's not good." Jason's voice was quiet but firm. "Because I'm tired of pretending." Inside, Michael and Sarah were doing final checks on their evidence. Emma and Lucas had gone home with Abigail to prepare for their own confrontation with Raphael. The house hummed with anticipation. Security cameras were in softly in every corner. Calvin surveyed his children's preparations with pride. Dana had tried to turn them into weapons against him, but instead they'd become architects of truth. She taught them how to lie, but they'd learned how to document reality instead. She'd wanted them to be her supporting cast, but they'd written their own story. Tomorrow, Dana would return from her latest business trip with Raphael, expecting to find her carefully manipulated household intact. Instead, she would face the consequences of underestimating the very children she tried to use as pawns. Calvin remembered something he'd told his advanced engineering class just last week. The best security systems don't just detect threats, they preserve truth. They remember what others try to make us forget. His children had become living proof of that principle. They'd taken their mother's lessons in deception and turned them into tools for exposing lies. They'd transformed their pain into purpose, their anger into action. But tonight, they waited. A family forged stronger by the very betrayal meant to break them apart. In the quiet evening, Calvin watched his children make their final preparations. Michael triple-checked his data backups. Sarah organized her documentation one last time. Jason rehearsed his words, no longer confused by his mother's manipulations. They were ready. Tomorrow would bring confrontation. But tonight, they were simply a family. Different from what Dana had tried to destroy, but somehow better, stronger, more real. The security cameras kept their silent vigil, recording truth in a house that had seen too many lies. Tomorrow, those truths would finally be heard. The autumn morning dawned crisp and clear as Dana's luxury sedan pulled into the driveway. She checked her makeup in the rearview mirror, practiced her concerned mother expression one last time. The business trip with Raphael had gone perfectly. More staged evidence, more carefully crafted lies. Victory felt close enough to taste. But the house before her looked different somehow. Still, waiting. The security cameras tracked her approach, their presence unnoticed as always. Inside, Calvin watched the feed from his office, noting Dana's practiced movements, the slight swagger in her step. Behind him, Michael adjusted his laptop one final time. "Everything's ready," his son reported. "Every file, every recording, every piece of evidence. Mom's about to learn what a real performance looks like." Through other cameras, they watched Sarah and Jason take their positions on the porch. Michael joined them, USB drive secure in his pocket. They formed a line, Michael's tall frame in the center, Sarah's determined stance on his right, Jason standing straighter than his 10 years would suggest on the left. Dana's heels clicked up the walkway, her designer suitcase rolled behind her, packed with more props for her ongoing theater of lies. She didn't notice her children's presence until she was halfway up the steps. "Darling," her voice hit the familiar note of manufactured concern. "What are you doing out here?" "It's chilly, you should be inside." "We're exactly where we need to be," Michael replied, his tone eerily similar to Calvin's when confronting technical failures in his systems. He held up the USB drive. "Let's talk about your performances, Mom." The ones you've been practicing in our living room. Dana's expression flickered, surprise quickly masked by confusion. What are you talking about, sweetie? You know, Mommy's been at a business conference. You mean your romantic getaway with Raphael? Sarah stepped forward, her tablet displaying a gallery of photographs. We found your burner phone. The one with all the texts about getting rid of us, getting rid of your emotional baggage. Jason added, his young voice steady. That's what you called us when you were planning to ship us off to boarding school. Dana's mask slipped further, her practiced smile turning sharp. You've been going through my private things. Your father put you up to this, didn't he? This is exactly the kind of manipulation I've been trying to protect you from. Protect us. Calvin's voice came from the doorway, recording everything. Like the right to manipulate children, to stage false evidence, to commit perjury. You planned this. Dana snarled, turning on her husband. Turn my own children against me. No, Donna. Calvin's smile was razor sharp. You did that all by yourself. We just made sure the cameras were rolling. Dana launched into another tirade, but her words died as a familiar car pulled into the driveway. Raphael stepped out, his own practiced concern morphing into shock at the scene before him. Donna, what's going on? Perfect timing. Lucas called out. Dad, want to see what you look like when you're staging evidence. We've got some great footage. Raphael's face hardened. Whatever they've told you, it's lies. Donna, we need to stop it. Abigail cut in. The police already have copies of everything. So do our lawyers. Your performances are going viral in the family court system. Dana's composure shattered completely. She lunged for Sarah's tablet, but Michael moved faster, stepping between them. Dana's hand connected with his face in a ringing slap. The security cameras caught it all, the real harm revealing itself at last. And that, Calvin said quietly, is the difference between staged domestic crime and actual attack on their loved ones. Officers, 2 police cars pulled up, their arrival perfectly timed. Dana screamed, turning to threats, promises of revenge, accusations of conspiracy. Raphael attempted to maintain his corporate calm, but his mask cracked when Emma stepped forward with her phone. Hey, Dad, she said sweetly. Remember when you taught me about recording apps? They work really well in therapy sessions when you're coaching kids to lie about their mother. The officers led Dana and Raphael away, their protests a duet of desperate denial. Their packed suitcases intended for another secret rendezvous were logged as evidence instead. Calvin gathered his children close as the police cars pulled away. I'm proud of you, all of you. We learned from the best. Michael replied, rubbing his cheek where Donna had struck him. She taught us how to lie. But you taught us how to protect the truth. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly. Dana's carefully staged videos, when contrasted with Calvin's security footage, destroyed any credibility she might have claimed. Raphael's similar attempts to frame Abigail backfired spectacularly, his own children's testimony sealing his fate. 1 year later, the Gibson home had transformed. Calvin's home automation company launched a new line of security systems specifically designed to protect families from domestic manipulation. The marketing was subtle, but the message was clear. Truth leaves traces that no performance can hide. Abigail's art therapy practice expanded to specialize in helping children heal from parental manipulation. The studio in her office displayed Emma's abstract paintings about truth and lies, Sarah's documentary photos, and Jason and Lucas's collaborative graphic novel about a family of truth seekers. The children moved forward in their own ways. Michael threw himself into computer science, developing algorithms to detect digital manipulation. Sarah's documentary about domestic deception won her a scholarship to film school. Jason's trust issues healed slowly through his growing friendship with his step-siblings. Dana's attempts at reputation rehabilitation failed spectacularly. Her corporate connections evaporated when the evidence went public. She took a job as a retail clerk, her designer wardrobe replaced by a polyester uniform. Sometimes she drove past her old home, watching through the windows as the family she lost grew stronger without her. Raphael faced his own lonely future, his carefully crafted corporate image shattered. His occasional emails to his children went unread, their trust in him buried under mountains of evidence of his deception. On a warm evening, exactly 1 year after the confrontation, Calvin stood before his advanced engineering class at the local university. The lecture hall was packed. His story had become something of a legend in security system circles. The funny thing about security systems, he told the eager students, is that they don't just keep bad things out. They protect the truth within. They remember what others try to make us forget. Technology doesn't lie, people do. But when we use technology to serve truth rather than deception, we build something stronger than any performance. At home, dinner waited. Not the family dinner Donna had imagined, but something better. Calvin and Abigail sat at a table surrounded by their children. Michael discussed encryption with Emma. Sarah and Lucas debated documentary techniques. Jason taught his new siblings the finer points of coding games. Through the window, they could see their security cameras keeping watch. But these devices no longer guarded against deception. Instead, they preserved the truth of a family rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal, stronger and more genuine than any performance could have created. Donna's designer heels no longer clicked through their halls. Raphael's corporate manipulations no longer threatened their peace. Instead, the house hummed with the sound of honest laughter, real conversations, and the quiet whir of systems designed to protect, not deceive. The security footage from that final confrontation had been archived, a digital testament to the moment performance gave way to truth. But the family no longer needed to watch it. They were too busy writing their own story, one where truth didn't need to be staged, and love didn't come with hidden cameras. Calvin's security systems still recorded everything, but now they captured joy instead of deception, healing instead of manipulation, strength instead of performance. The cameras were softly in their corners, preserving the truth of a family that had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest security comes not from keeping threats out, but from letting truth shine through. And somewhere in the city, in a small apartment above a discount store, Donna watched her old family's social media updates with bitter regret. Her carefully staged life had crumbled, leaving her with nothing but the echoes of a performance that had finally met its perfect audience and received exactly the review it deserved. The truth, as Calvin always said, had a way of protecting itself. All it needed was someone willing to keep the cameras rolling. Epilogue. 5 years later, the security camera footage played on the massive screen at the International Security Systems Convention. The audience of industry professionals watched in silence as a younger Donna Gibson rehearsed her fake domestic crime scenes, meticulously applying makeup and coaching her children. The timestamp showed 5 years ago. This wasn't just about catching a cheating spouse, Calvin Gibson told the packed auditorium. Now CEO of Gibson Security Solutions, his company had become the industry leader in domestic security and abuse prevention systems. This was about protecting truth in an age of manufactured reality. In the front row, Michael Gibson, now a 20-year-old prodigy finishing his computer science degree, nodded slightly. His facial recognition algorithm had become the cornerstone of their new truth detection software suite. The small scar on his cheek from Donna's final violent outburst had faded, but the lessons hadn't. The presentation shifted to current footage. Donna Wilson, who tried reverting to her maiden name, shuffled into her 4th different retail job in 5 years. The once immaculate executive now wore discount store uniforms, her designer wardrobe long sold to cover legal fees. Her latest workplace warning was for trying to convince a young cashier to provide false testimony in yet another failed lawsuit against Calvin. "Mom still doesn't get it," Sarah commented from her seat beside Michael. At 18, she'd already won several student film awards for her documentary series on domestic deception. Her latest project followed children of manipulative parents, their stories echoing her own. "She thinks she can still act her way out of consequences," Sarah continued. The footage tracked Donna's decline with clinical precision. After the divorce, she tried reinventing herself in several cities, But Calvin's security footage had gone viral in legal circles. Every law firm she approached for representation had seen her performance. Every corporate job she applied for found the evidence in their background checks. Raphael Wolf hadn't fared much better. The presentation showed him leaving a small legal aid office in Nevada, where he now handled minor traffic violations. His corporate law career had imploded spectacularly when his own recorded admissions of evidence tampering surfaced. His attempts to blame Donna had only accelerated his downfall. Last month, Calvin continued his presentation. Raphael attempted to contact his children through a new social media account. Our systems flagged the approach within minutes, Calvin noted, documenting his continued attempts at manipulation. Emma Wolf, now 19 and studying psychology with a focus on parental alienation, had published a scathing response to her father's latest plea for reconciliation. Her art therapy pieces about parental manipulation had been featured in several psychological journals. What these individuals fail to understand, Calvin explained, is that technology doesn't just record events. It preserves context, intent, and patterns of behavior that no amount of acting can disguise. The screen showed Donna's latest scheme, attempting to befriend the teenage children of her current boyfriend, a mall security guard who didn't know her history. The footage captured her subtle coaching, the same manipulation techniques she'd used on her own children. 3 days ago, Calvin noted, Child Protective Services received our evidence package. Her boyfriend's children are now safe with their mother, and Donna faces new charges of attempted child manipulation. Jason, now 15 and already taking college computing classes, had been the one to spot the pattern. His coding skills had evolved into a specialized focus on behavior analysis algorithms. The gaming console Donna once used to bribe him gathered dust in an evidence storage unit. The most dangerous predators, Calvin continued, aren't strangers with weapons. They're the ones who weaponize trust, who turn family bonds into tools of manipulation, who perform love while plotting destruction. Recent footage showed Raphael's failed attempt to rebuild his legal career. He tried starting a small practice in rural Idaho, but his former associates had spread the word. No law firm would partner with him. No client would trust him. His expensive suits had been replaced by off-the-rack blazers, his luxury car downgraded to a used sedan. Both Donna and Raphael attempted to publish their side of the story through various online platforms. Calvin noted, our systems tracked 23 different social media accounts they created, each attempting to rewrite history. Sarah clicked to the next slide, showing screenshots of Donna and Raphael's various attempts at reputation rehabilitation. Blog posts claiming conspiracy, social media rants about parental alienation, self-published ebooks that vanished under waves of evidence-backed reviews. Last year, Calvin continued, Donna attempted to approach Jason at his robotics competition. Our facial recognition system flagged her presence immediately. She was wearing a wig, colored contacts, and had gained 40 pounds. But patterns don't lie. The footage showed Donna being escorted out by security, her new disguise doing nothing to hide her familiar manipulative gestures. Jason's team had gone on to win first place, their home security robot dedicated to truth and technology. Raphael tried something similar at Emma's college art show, Calvin added. He claimed to be a gallery owner interested in her work. The attempt lasted exactly 12 minutes before our systems identified him and notified security. Both Donna and Raphael had tried therapy, claiming they wanted to change. But the security footage told a different story. Donna practicing her reformed expressions and storming mirrors, Raphael rehearsing apology speeches while Googling manipulation techniques. 5 years of documentation. Calvin gestured at the screen. 5 years of attempts to escape consequences. 5 years of proof that patterns of deception don't change without genuine accountability. The presentation shifted to happier footage. The blended Gibson-Wolf family at various celebrations. Michael's early college graduation. Sarah's film festival wins. Jason and Lucas's robotics championships. Emma's art therapy center opening. Family vacations where genuine laughter replaced performed affection. Calvin and Abigail's wedding 3 years ago had been a study in security and authenticity. Every guest was verified, every gift screened, every moment documented by systems designed to protect joy rather than expose deception. Donna's attempt to crash the ceremony was blocked before she made it past the parking lot. Today, Calvin announced, Gibson Security Solutions launches our most advanced system yet, the Truth Guardian. It uses AI developed by my son Michael to recognize not just faces, but patterns of deceptive behavior. It analyzes micro-expressions, vocal stress patterns, and behavioral consistency. The demonstration showed the system in action, flagging Donna's latest attempt at manipulation, even through layers of practiced sincerity. Her new job interview at a family counseling center ended abruptly when the system identified her pattern of rehearsed responses. Raphael tested their beta version unintentionally, Calvin noted with a slight smile. His attempt to join a legal aid clinic focusing on family court cases triggered 7 different warning algorithms. The screen showed Raphael's increasingly desperate attempts to rebuild his life. He tried therapy, life coaching, even religious conversion. But the cameras caught him practicing his sincere faces in mirrors, rehearsing his genuine remorse, performing redemption like another role. Their tragedy, Calvin explained, isn't just the loss of family. It's their inability to recognize that truth isn't something you perform. It's something you live. Recent footage showed Donna walking past her old house late at night, watching through windows as her former family celebrated Jason's latest robotics win. She'd aged dramatically. Her once perfect makeup now garish under fluorescent lights, her practiced grace turned to bitter shuffling. Mom sent Christmas cards again, Sarah mentioned during the post-presentation family dinner. Same studied handwriting, same calculated appeals to guilt. The system flagged identical phrasing from her previous attempts. Dad tried commenting on my thesis presentation, Emma added, serving salad to her step-siblings. Created a whole fake academic profile to seem legitimate. The system caught his speech patterns in under 3 minutes. Lucas, now 17 and following his stepbrother into computer science, pulled up the latest security feeds on his tablet. Donna's trying to write a memoir. Publishers keep finding our evidence collection whenever they fact-check. Raphael's doing worse, Michael noted, showing a recent surveillance photo. Lost his apartment last month, been living in extended-stay motels, still wearing his old designer watches, even though he's working as a paralegal temp. The Gibson home had become a testament to secured truth. Every room held memories documented by cameras that served protection rather than prosecution. Family photos showed genuine smiles, not performed poses. The security system watched over love freely given, not artificially staged. Abigail's art therapy practice had expanded into a full clinic, helping families heal from manipulation and deception. The waiting room walls displayed Emma's powerful paintings about truth and redemption, while Sarah's documentaries played on discrete screens. The funny thing about consequences, Calvin told his family, is that they don't require our attention to unfold. Donna and Raphael's choices created ripples that no amount of performance can smooth away. The system flagged another attempt that evening, Donna trying to contact Michael through a fake alumni association account. Her message was pure performance, filled with phrases their algorithms recognized from her previous manipulations. She's getting desperate, Michael observed, adding the data to their pattern recognition database. Running out of roles to play. Dad's the same, Emma said quietly. Saw him outside my art therapy center last week, still wearing his old power ties, still trying to look like the successful lawyer. But he was asking about janitorial positions, she continued. The security footage told the story of their decline with unblinking precision. Donna moving through a series of increasingly lower-paying jobs, each workplace eventually discovering her history. Raphael's law license permanently revoked, his corporate connections evaporated, his performance of success crumbling under the weight of documented truth. I almost feel sorry for them, Jason admitted, working on his latest coding project. Almost. But then I remember how it felt to be props in their performance. Sarah nodded, editing footage for her next documentary. They still don't understand. Every time they try to reinvent themselves, they're just reading from a different script. The cameras see through it all. The system had documented every stage of their downfall. Donna's multiple restraining orders from attempted manipulations, Raphael's failed lawsuits trying to restore his law license. They were separate but parallel descents from success to survival. Truth has a long memory, Calvin concluded. Calvin told his advanced security design class the next day, especially when it's preserved by systems designed to protect rather than deceive. The Gibson house stood as proof of his words. Security cameras still watched softly in corners, but now they recorded joy instead of deception, growth instead of manipulation, love instead of performance. The truth they protected had built something stronger than any lie could destroy. And somewhere in the city, in separate small apartments, Donna and Raphael lived with the consequences of their choices. Their performances had finally found their perfect audience, in security footage that never stopped recording, in systems that never forgot, in truth that needed no rehearsal. The cameras kept watching, the algorithms kept learning, and the truth kept protecting itself, just as Calvin had designed it to do 5 years ago, when performance gave way to reality, and security became about preserving honesty rather than exposing lies. The story of their downfall became a teaching tool in security design circles, a cautionary tale in family courts, a case study in behavioral analysis. But for the Gibson Wolfe family, it was simply history, documented, protected, and finally laid to rest under the watchful eyes of systems designed to guard truth rather than conceal it. The security footage would keep recording, but Donna and Raphael no longer commanded center stage. Their performance had ended. The truth, as Calvin always said, would continue protecting itself one frame at a time. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.